Hi guys, thank you for joining me for this edition of Color and Beauty. My name is Snaj Nicole and we are doing Fashion Fridays. I came up with this concept because I am obsessed with history and obsessed with fashion, so I thought let's marry the two. So this week we are going to be talking about the history of high heels. This came at the suggestion of my best friend Astrid because she knows how I am obsessed with high heels. So I figured, yeah, let's start and see how it all began. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, so we are starting with my eyebrows and we are also starting in 10th century Persia. High heels started out very practical. Don't think stilettos, don't think platforms. It was a 1-inch heel for Persian soldiers and it was used for the stirrups so they could, stand up and shoot arrows. They needed a little heel to make it more stable. Very practical, right? So the Shah of Persia, which was Abbas I, when he went to Europe, for diplomatic reasons and also to discuss the entities of the Ottoman Empire, he was wearing his little 1-inch heels and everybody was like, ooh, what are those? That probably was the first time what are those was used for, but they were immensely intrigued in these little heels. Now, the Persians were known for their virility and for being super manly and the whole nine. Instead of how we think of heels today, even to the point of hypersexualism, they were thought as the exact opposite and being extremely masculine because only the bravest were Persian soldiers, and if you were wearing those little heels, that meant that you were brave. So I'm using the crayon case highlighter right here, and this is going to cut my brows up. So we were talking about the masculinity of these Persian soldiers and the nobility of Europe. They wanted to be like them. Noble courts started wearing different variations of heels. This was a symbolism of wealth because it meant that you own a horse, and it also meant that you had to have had some land for that horse. So this was very much a status symbol, in that if you were wearing those heels, it meant money, like money. And ironically enough, well, today's irony, Queen Elizabeth I started wearing heels because it was so masculine. We all know that the Queen often would do masculine things to garner respect. So she wore heels because it was the manly thing to do. 17th century, aka the 1600s, women started emulating men's fashion in general. And of course, that meant high heels. Now also in this time, the powdered wigs and the makeup and all that stuff was going on too. Well, we would look back in time, we would consider that very androgynous in general, but yeah, it was very a masculine thing to do. Now, King Louis XIV was a relatively small man, so he loved wearing heels. I mean, he was reportedly known to wear heels as high as 5 inches, and the higher the heel, higher in nobility you were. And his shoes were famously red. So Louis Vuitton, looking at you, I see what you did there. King Louis started the red heel trend, and all of the men in his court were wearing them too. It was a sign of loyalty and also status. Using the Urban Decay Primer Potion here to prime my lids. And for this shadow look for today, the Pat McGrath's Mothership 8 Divine Rose 2, right here. I'm gonna be using this bad boy here. We are giving one of these away, so if you guys want to enter in that contest, make sure you check in the description box below and you'll see the contest rules. But that ends on September 28th, 2020, so please, if you're interested in winning this gorgeousness, make sure you enter. Look in the description box for the rules. Back to the 1700s, only the rich, only the pompous really wears high heels. So when the French Revolution came along, decapitation city, and they're overthrowing the bloodlines of the royals of the French, you don't really want to be caught wearing heels, do you? No, not when they're out giving free decapitations. That, along with the movement of rationalism, deterred people from wanting to wear heels. The rationalism of men, they were encouraged to wear, rational footwear. High heels just weren't rational, right? Now, women, on the other hand, were never deemed to be rational beings, you know, because we can't like think. We can't think. Sure, wear those unnecessary heels that don't require any logic, you know. But for the most part, like I said, heels were associated with nobility at the time, and that just wasn't cool. So heels just kind of faded into black, if you will. So now we're entering the 1860s and this wonderful invention called the photographer. Honestly, it was called the photographer, then it was not really a camera. And as we all know, photography is all about them angles, boo. The angles, the silhouettes, and we all know the beautiful silhouette that a heel can make. It almost encourages the female form. And whether, you know, the person was sitting or standing or what have you, photographers just found it more attractive to photograph women wearing heels. Now, it did get a little salacious here because specifically, and I found this in my research a lot, that it was related more to pornography than anything else. Now, we're not talking, you know, pornography like we see today in 4K. No. We're talking about women in thin lacy garments, still like basically covered. Like there wasn't any nip slips or anything like that. But they were still wearing their little boots with the little heels. And high heels just became, you know, essentially erotic because of this invention. It's crazy to think these Instagram models have been following standards set in the 1860s. I'm gonna try something right here. I think I'm gonna put this just kind of in the... Ooh, I like that, you guys, this palette. Ooh. I know we're talking heels right now, but like I said, if you want to get this palette, holy cow. It's like a pink glitter dust just exploded on my eye. Let me snap into my eyes really quick and we'll keep talking. Okay guys, what do you think? I think this palette is awesome. Remember, we're giving one away, $125 value because we love you guys. Please try and get it. We were talking about porn, right? Yes, early pornography of the 1860s. The photographers loved the way a heel looked on a woman. So this trend doesn't stop necessarily. The most, I would say, prominent that you can see it is in the 1940s pinups. And think of all like what you saw on the warplanes. I'm using this here for my foundation. You know, they would name their planes after women. They would have painted pictures of all these beautiful women on their planes, and they all had heels. So wearing heels quickly became associated with femininity and sexuality. Soon enough, women found power in that. Enters Hollywood, 1950s. We're talking Marilyn Monroe now. Marilyn Monroe was quoted to say that we owe the man who made high heels so much. She found so much power wearing her high heel shoes. She famously wore 4-inch heels in most every movie that she was in. So if Marilyn Monroe was the highest standard of beauty, at least by Western culture standards, women flocked to wearing heels. Because again, technology and steel enters the stiletto. Now, I'm gonna show you guys. This is the type of shoe that I'm addicted to. See, it matches. Ooh, it matches. This is a shoe that I got from Charlotte Russe, and I love it. I wore these today. I think every time there is a major social movement, fashion is affected, and that includes heels. The 1950s was the time of the housewife, and in the 60s we had the rebellion of such. Flat sandals, earthiness, the hippies. Hippies didn't wear high heels. So there was this trend of back and forth between heels, and you see it comes back with the super platform in the 1970s, and then in the 80s it goes down to more of a kitten heel, and back to platforms in the 90s. Then stiletto heels, the minimalist look. The heel goes away but instantly comes right back, and I think it's because the versatility of it. I just love them because I feel great in them, and I don't wear heels that don't feel good. I know a lot of women who wear them complain that they hurt their feet, and if it hurts your feet, boo, don't wear them. I never advocate for someone to be in pain. Put on some rouge here. Speaking of heels causing pain, the Kutu movement, which is something that was started with the same ambience of the Me Too movement in 2019, was started by a Japanese activist. Forgive me, I don't know her name. I'll put it here on the screen somewhere. She was advocating that women not be required to wear high heels in the work environment, especially, you know, if you're on your feet for 6 hours at a time doing pretty strenuous work. 3-inch heels are generally not your friend. What I do, I'm generally at a desk. So, you know, wearing heels all day doesn't mean standing on my feet all day. Me wearing heels at work, I know the luxury, and I don't expect other people to wear them all day like they do currently in Japan. So that's quite a movement that's been taking place. And there's also been a cultural shift in the late, are we calling them the 2010s? I guess. Yeah, in the late 2010s, you know, there's been shown that most young women are opting not to wear heels. And more power to you, honey. I think that heels are a beautiful choice to make. Choice being the key word. So never feel pressured to wear them. Just never. If you ever feel like you have to, then that means you shouldn't. I'm going to be using the e.l.f. and the Bella Noir for my highlight here. Come back to the idea. Our high heels. Woo! Every time. Oh, you guys can never get your hands on this. Are high heels for men? Did history ever repeat itself? Well, I'll argue that it never really went away, especially for those who are on the androgynous spectrum. You know, think Prince. We've had plenty of rock stars wear high heels because they're aesthetically pleasing, you know? And it doesn't have to mean femininity, even though right now it equates to that for the most part. King Louis did it because he was small-statured and he also liked the way they look. I feel like that works with anybody, regardless of gender. Okay, guys, so we are going to do our Friday footnote and go over everything. To recap today's topic, we are talking about the origin of high heels and how it started out as men's artillery footwear to today's highly feminine stiletto. And it started out in 10th century Persia with the first Shah, who showed up in Western Europe, and the Europeans were like, I'm gonna cop that, and they sure did. And they continued to for over 100 years, using it as a sign of nobility and masculine prowess. Eventually, women copied this fashion, including the first Queen Elizabeth, who thought it made her more manly, i.e. more powerful. And then we went on to the 1700s, where the rationalization of men made it to where it didn't make any sense for you to be wearing those high heel shoes, sir. So they stopped. Also, because of the sign of nobility in the French Revolution, no one wanted to be caught literally dead wearing them. Moving on to the 1860s, where we have the invention of the photograph taker, aka the camera, where we recognize how pretty the silhouettes of a heel can make, especially on a woman. So, pornographers took on to using the high heels as part of the pornography. It evolved into just being erotic and sexual in general, which is why the 1940s pinups used them to make sure that the full version of femininity was present, i.e. that high heel had to be there, boo. The 1950s, we have Marilyn Monroe as the existential ideal of what a woman should look like, adorning heels in all of her films. The world got to catch on. Over time, we've had different movements that went back and forth where they saw heels as oppressive and as empowerment. Women have the right to choose to wear both, honey. If you want to wear flats, wear your flats. Now, if you're a girl like me who loves her pumps, you can wear them too. And that brings us to the end of our first edition of Fashion Fridays. I hope you guys like this. This is something I want to keep doing. Thank you, Astrid, for the first edition here. I do think you were absolutely right that the first one had to be about heels. If you guys want to get that palette that I was using today, this palette is the Mothership 8 Divine Rose 2. I will put the instructions in the description below in order for you to win this palette. But yeah, it's awesome. This is like the 5th look I've done with this palette, and it is completely effortless. It's Pat McGrath. That's all you gotta say about it. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below. Tell me what you want the next Fashion Friday to be about, and I'll be sure to do my research on it. Go to our Instagram, that's It's Color and Beauty, that's ITSCOLOUR, because yes, we are worldly like that. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye. the rationalization. Can I say that word today? I don't think I can.